Welcome everyone. So in the last episode, we worked with Naren's colleague from Career Success Australia, London, who introduced the STAR principle to help us fabricate an exemplary answer to some behavioral questions. In this episode, we're excited to continue our learning journey with Naren, and we'll demonstrate them with good and bad examples and his feedbacks. Okay, Naren, I'll forward this to you.
Thanks, Daisy. Thanks, Navya. Good to see you guys again. And yes, behavioral interview questions are really important. The main reason why is because a lot of these questions are scenario types of questions where they'll give you a type of situation that can happen in the workplace. And then they want to see how you will respond to it, how you will react to it. And they also want to see if you have experience dealing with and managing similar types of situations from a behavioral perspective, from a personality perspective. Will you get flustered? Will you get worried? Will you panic? Or do you stay calm? Do you stay cool? Do you think things through logically, methodically, to work through to a good solution and outcome, whatever the problem is? So behavioral questions are really designed to see, how would you respond in any given situation at work? And so they're actually quite difficult as well because, there are so many. But similar to what I covered in one of the earlier podcasts is around, and Daisy, you touched on this as well, which is about listening and really analyzing the substance or the intent behind the question. So we did cover off the strengths question, and we were able to see that the way that you can ask the strengths question to say, what are your strengths, or how will you add value to this role? What are your core capabilities as an engineering graduate? That's basically saying, what are your strengths? What makes you the best candidate? It's again, what are your strengths? Similarly with behavioral questions, they could ask you a question like, tell us a time you had to deal with a difficult customer. Okay. Another similar type of question, when have you ever had to let down one of your core suppliers or subcontractors? Okay. Or how do you handle conflict with your subcontractors? How do you negotiate difficult discussions and projects with your subcontractors and builders? So they can ask the question in a variety of ways. Okay, so I'm happy to workshop a couple of behavioral answers with you guys, just so people can see the structure. Did you want to go through any particular questions?
And I imagine students or entry-level job seekers, it's quite common that we start someone else in the other industry, for example, hospitality, during our student career. So could you mold the answer to show and exemplify our stakeholder management skill when we try to get our feet into the door in the construction and property space?
It's a good one, Daisy, because you may, and some interviews and interview panel members, just as you as a candidate, you need to know the company and the position back to front and your resume back to front. The company also has an obligation, I think, to know who they're interviewing. So for example, if you come for an interview with me and I'm looking for a candidate who has specific experience doing steel design for high-rise, and I know you're just a fresh graduate, you haven't done it, I'm not going to go, tell us about a time where, you had to do calculations and designs for high-rise steel. So I'm not going to ask you that, right? Or I'm not going to ask you a question. If you're a fresh graduate, I'm not going to go, tell us the time you negotiated the best possible price with tiling subcontractors or suppliers. I can't ask you that because it's setting you up to fail. But you may get some annoying panel member that will ask you, tell us a time where you had to negotiate with a really difficult subcontractor. You had to negotiate to do follow-up works, repairs, maintenance, remediation work or something, yeah? So let's say you have no idea because you've just finished your bachelor's of civil, okay? So the theme of the question is, negotiation with someone who's being difficult, okay? So that's what you've got to pick up, the key word of the question. What is a key word? It's about negotiating with difficult subcontractors. Then you've got to think, well, I haven't worked with subcontractors, but who else have I had to negotiate with who was difficult? So this is how you answer the question. Well, look, I haven't got direct experience working with difficult subcontractors and negotiating with them. However, this is a magic word you should use in your interview. However, because if you don't use it, all you're going to say is, I haven't had the opportunity to work with difficult subcontractors. That's it. That's it. Next question, please, because I haven't done it. Sorry. But when you use the however, okay, you're giving the next best alternative response. So you're going to say, I haven't worked with difficult subcontractors before. And then I would actually say, because I am just a recent graduate, because I just finished my master's. However, I do have experience in negotiating and working with sometimes with difficult people. For example, in our master's project, it was worth 60% of our total grade. And I was in a group of 3. And we did have, one of our group members, and I was the team leader, we did have a group member who unfortunately, they weren't very good at time management. So, we had equal parts to the project and they never met the deadlines. They never attended our meetings, okay? And their part of the project was actually quite crucial. So I knew that if we didn't fix and improve the situation, the whole group would suffer and we would probably barely pass this project. So here's what I did, okay? That's when you talk about, here's what I did to overcome working with this difficult group member, okay? So then you talk about it and say, look, so what I did was I actually called a meeting. I called them up, I said, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we are having some challenges with this project. And I don't know, but if you know, but this project is worth 60%. So it's really important that we all work effectively. So I said, look, I'm happy to come to you. I know you live a bit far. So this is about negotiating and really building that connection. Are you free in an hour? I'll come to you. Make it easy for them. Sure. So I called a meeting. I brought Navya, our other teammate, and we approached, we had a meeting and we took them through the seriousness. And through that meeting, we were able to identify that they were actually struggling with the software and they were a bit embarrassed to tell us. So through this process, we're able to switch tasks. I gave them part of what I was doing because they were actually better at that, okay? And so through that negotiation process of shuffling the work around and sitting down with them, we were able to identify the problem and fix the situation. And so going back to your question about dealing with difficult people, I believe this experience has really taught me about how to overcome working with difficult people. And I think the key aspects are really open communication, reaching out to people who are causing some difficulties on your project, understanding their position, but most of all, working out a strategic plan to make sure that whatever is causing the roadblocks or the problems, we work out what they are and then work constructively with that person to fix. So that's how I would approach dealing with difficult people. And I'm sure there are similarities with how you would use that approach to deal with difficult subcontractors. Thank you. Okay.
Sometimes it could play out as the actual examination to examine how you can think on your feet during the interview. And sometimes the context may not ring a bell to you because you haven't practiced in that space, but you do need to do a bit of research and know how you can transform the answer and still align that to what they want to uncover from you.
You've touched on a really important point, which is when you go for an interview, right, you have to think quickly, okay? You don't have time. They will be throwing questions at you in all behavioral, technical, and you've literally got 5 seconds to digest what they've just told you and then come up with an answer. And that's why, to everyone listening, practice, practice, practice in front of the mirror. We get our clients to literally write out thousands, pages upon pages of answers, okay? One of the biggest tips I can give people listening for interviews is, and I think I read an article where the former head of HR at Google, this was a few years ago, said the best way to practice for your interview is to write out your answers, okay? And then you've got to read. You've got to read, then turn the sheet over and go, how do I handle difficult customers? What did I write? What did I type? And then go, I've forgotten. Then read it and go, oh, that's what I was meant to say, okay? And then practice again without the sheet, okay? Then in front of the mirror, practice, practice, practice. So when you go for an interview and they say, hey, Naren, tell us a time where you had to overcome working with a difficult stakeholder. Okay, you'll be so ready. You'll be like, stakeholder, oh, yep, okay, sure. Well, okay, well, there was a situation where I was working, da, da, da. As opposed to going, difficult stakeholder, oh, okay. Difficult stakeholder. Yeah, okay. Well, I did. Well, look, I did work once with a team for my uni. And already you can tell this answer's going nowhere. The person hasn't prepared. Okay.
Yeah, just to add on to your tips regarding practicing and rehearsing beforehand. Now that many of us are getting more and more wired and conditioned to use Zoom and other online meeting platforms, I do want to remind the audience to really leverage these platforms to do some practicing, turning the video on and get yourself recorded. And you can just crunch your response and review that at your own discretion and think from the viewpoint of a recruiter. Would you deem this as a suitable answer in the context of an interview?
Yeah, another good point you've touched on, Daisy, which is when you record yourself and watch, would you be impressed? If you ran your own civil and construction company, so you started your own business and you were interviewing for a junior or graduate, and if you saw yourself as the candidate, would you be blown away or would you go, oh my God, that person is not someone I'm going to pay money to work for me? Forget it. So you've got to really critique yourself because they're not just interviewing you, they're interviewing 3, 4, 5 other people. And they're only going to pick the best person. They're going to pick the person who can manage difficult stakeholders, okay? So hopefully that gives you guys a bit of insight into how to handle that sort of question.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings me to the next question about taking the initiative. Initiative is something that's quite important that we take to not only leap at the chance for the opportunity, but also resolve conflicts in a situation. So how does that play out when asked as a behavioral question? How can we fabricate the response?
Yeah. I'm happy for you to have a go at it, Navya, and we can just workshop it after if that's cool.
Yeah, like taking initiative at a workplace, like that.
Yeah. So let's hypothetically say hypothetically we'll say you're in an interview, and they've gone, Navya, thanks for your time today. Da 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 da. And sometimes in an interview they'll actually they'll word the question in a long way. So we'll go, Navya, tell us the time you took. Part of this role will require the candidate to take initiative from time to time. Tell us the time where you've taken initiative before.
Yeah, like Yeah, I think I didn't get the question properly, like in which perspective I'm gonna answer that.
Okay, so part of this is um, in an interview,
Yeah.
if you don't understand the question, it's okay to
Mhm.
actually ask,
Yeah.
but you can only ask once.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't ask after every question they give you. Sorry, could you explain that a bit more? Could you repeat the
Mm-hmm.
question? Because that's the end of the interview. You can maybe do it once. So you could ask the question, Navi, and say, look, in terms of initiative, sorry, I just want to clarify. Do you mean taking initiative sort of in a work setting, or could I give you an example from my uni? And they'll say, you choose. Okay. But Navia, if they ask you the question on, tell us the time you took initiative, if you've never
Mm-hmm.
worked in industry, it's okay to
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
uni, or talk about working at a cafe or at a pizza
Yeah.
shop or at Coles. Completely fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I
Okay.
got him. Let, let me explain this. Like a year back, I moved to Melbourne for my masters. Yeah. After coming over here in March 2020, I think only for 3 4 weeks I went for university. After that, due to COVID and all, I was just all my classes were online. So I was just not able to meet people, do talk with many people or network with people. So I was just staying home. All my classes were online. So I didn't get an opportunity to talk with people. So what I did was I just took an initiative to start working as a freelancer. So that because during that pandemic period, you know that many opportunities were not available. So it was a bit difficult for me to find my first job in Melbourne. So I just
Mm,
started freelancing, and one of my seniors suggested me that you can just start a freelancing on website, online portal or something. Yeah, I
mm,
I just gave a thought. Yeah, I can do that. Why to just sit idle at home, just
mm,
doing my masters? Let me work on something. So I just started at the end of March 2020, like November. I prepared my profile, like I prepared a gig, and I just uploaded what things I can do for my clients and all. And I think in the first week of November, I set my profile, and at the end of third week, I think I just got a project in Melbourne. It was in Carnegie. Yeah, this is how I just took initiative to work on myself.
that's a good answer, Nadia. Congratulations. That's awesome. That's like from a recruiter's perspective or a company's perspective, I'll be like, she has just told us how
Mhm.
she overcame hardship. So for me, she's resilient.
Yeah,
Okay. She's motivated. She said, I'm not just going to sit at home doing nothing during this pandemic.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. She's taking initiative by registering with a freelancing website. Okay.
yeah,
And the best part was you actually gave us the result. The
yeah,
result of this was you won some work.
yeah.
So I'm going to be like, she's head of the class.
Yeah. And I think at the end of my first semester, I started applying for jobs online from many online portals like Indeed and See.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will be knowing that after working so much on our resume and cover letter, we'll just upload our resumes and cover
Yeah.
letter. After 2 or 3 weeks, we'll just get an automated mail like, unfortunately, your resume
Mm,
has not been shortlisted. Yeah, I was just fed up of that. To see this mail, we need to work so many things like that. And even
mm,
I took another initiative, like after finishing all this, lockdown was completed. After that, what I did was I was applying for jobs online, and I
mm,
went personally to those companies, and I just hand over my resume hard copy, and I just talked with the person like at the receptionist, or I think for two managers I talked like how I can, what I can do, what are my skills and all. Yeah, they said, yeah, we'll get back to you, we'll call you for the interview and all. Yeah, I think this was another initiative that I took to get an opportunity.
that's brilliant. And for any uni student listening or
Yeah,
watching this, whatever Navi has just said is gold, right? Especially for civil and construction. if you are desperate for a job, and I've heard stories like this where the student, first year, second year, whatever, has literally driven around the construction sites with their CV and gone, can I please speak to the foreman, or is there like a construction manager here? Like if you do that to 100 sites, 90 of them may say, sorry mate, we're not interested. And it's hard, that rejection. So that means there's 10 left. 5 of them may say, oh, thank you. Yeah, no, look, he's a bit busy, but give me a CV. And then the resume goes in the bin. Okay, that leaves only 5. Out of the 5, you may get a chance to meet the construction manager. And they may go, yeah, we're looking for someone, but we're actually just wrapping up this project, so no thank you. So that means maybe 3 of those. That leaves 2. One of them may say, oh, we are looking for a labourer. See all of that concrete there? You've got to pour that, do that. Still not a bad, if you're doing nothing, I would do it. I have a cousin of mine. He's gone through the John Holland grad program. He's worked he's worked at Samsung. He worked on a major rail project in Port Hedland for a big mine. Now he works at ARUP, ARUP, big company in Perth. This guy, he was born in Sri Lanka but came in when he was young. That's what he did. He worked as a concreter during his Bachelor's of Civil at VU. And he said, Naren, what I learned on that, he said it was hard work. I just got paid cash in hand from an Italian concreter. He said, but I loved it. I learned so much. I learned resilience. Okay. So what you've talked about, Navya, going out, handing your CV is really good. Okay. It may not work, but the opportunity you get, which may be a construction manager saying, sorry, Navya, but we don't have anything here. But my mate, Jimmy, he's got 15 tenders. He's got a cost. You go with Excel? Okay. Yes, I can use Excel. Well, what's your number? That's how they, like Australian people. What's your number? Well, I'll give him a call now. You know, and so that's networking indirectly. So going back to your answer, it's really good initiative. So you have to come up with a really unique way to demonstrate how you solved a problem or overcame some mess or some challenge using initiative. The one thing I would encourage you to build on that, Navya, the one thing missing from your answer was the detail. So you mentioned something about a project in Carnegie, but you didn't tell us what were you actually freelancing. Was it lawn mowing? Was it design? Sorry?
AutoCAD drafts person.
See, you got to put those words in and say, look, I started freelancing doing AutoCAD drafting for residential projects. And then say, through this initiative, I won my first job within a month. It was a drafting project for a double-story da-da-da. Did you work with an architect?
No, it was a renovation project. The client was already having a plan of the building. So they just wanted to make changes to the initial plan. Like it was a 2-story building, residential building. So the first story they want to make from residential to commercial and retain the second story as a residential thing.
Perfect. So build that detail into your answer. Okay. But that's an awesome example of taking initiative.
And the client was looking for just an AutoCAD person so that they'll just get an idea how to renovate their building. But I just told them I use Rivet so that they can get a 3D model of the building so that the interior thing, the sections, the elevations, they'll get an idea about the project, how it may look. It was a commercial project. It's like they were planning to open a juice center. So I just told them you can see the equipments that you may place in the juice center, like the furnitures and all the display units. You'll get a better idea. So I just said I'll use Rivet. They were happy with that.
Through this initiative you've taken, not only have you secured some sort of freelance work, but number 2, you've got a reference from this company as well.
Yeah.
Number 3, they may refer you to someone else.
Yeah.
Number 4, you can put this in your resume.
Yeah.
So now, Navya, you have local experience.
Yeah, right.
All because you took initiative. You had a choice during the pandemic. You could have sat home watching Netflix or feeling sorry for yourself, which a lot of us did.
Yeah,
you
but
didn't.
I don't like to be like that. Yeah.
Yep. And it's paid off, Navya, you know? And that is the difference between getting a job and not initiative.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you can even go to an interview, and if they go, do you have experience in Australia working on projects using AutoCAD? Most international students will say no. But because you took initiative, Navya, you can say yes.
Yeah, I got it.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah,
So well done.
I got to know that what the council are looking for, like they need the approval for the plan. So our client sent me the council details, like what they're looking, how I need to draft the plans according to the council and all. So I just came to know how to plan for an approval drawing like that.
Yes. You need building permit, planning permit.
Yeah.
There'll be a series of maybe amendments to the plan, you know. So that's awesome. So I think everyone listening can certainly use what Navya has given as a really good model. Now, the other ways you can talk about initiative will be from your university degree, taking initiative to solve some major problem with a project, perhaps, taking initiative to solve a problem with a teammate, or, you know, a really good one that I found I heard was taking initiative from a young man, international student. He was working at a Domino's, and they had a major incident where 2 people called in sick, so they were understaffed. He took initiative to change up the roster. He brought in someone else from a different store. At the same time, they had a fault with one of the ovens. They had a backlog of 50 orders. He took initiative by calling in the technician. Technician wasn't there. They called another technician. So he took initiative to solve a major problem that was going to impact the business. He could have gone, well, it's not my problem. Well, I guess we go home. But he didn't. He took initiative. Through that, he got a promotion. Okay, the store manager loved him, gave him a glowing reference. So that's another way you can demonstrate taking initiative through the part-time casual work that you've got as well. So hopefully that gives everyone a good idea as to how to tackle that initiative question.
Maybe we can go with another question to wrap up this session. Perhaps we can talk a bit more about the failure, just to reinforce what you instructed us on in talking about the weakness. So I guess these two will weave together quite well in the same category.
Yeah, that is a good behavioral question, which is, you know, tell us a time where you failed on a project. Tell us a time where you made a mistake at work, and what did you do? Okay. So there are some tactics around how to answer this question, because you can't say, no, I've never taken a mistake. No, I've never failed on anything. I'm perfect. Or you can't say, yes, there was a time where I made a major mistake. I added an extra 0 to the contract for the estimated and it ended up costing the business $10,000 to change the contract. And it was a major mistake. Finished. Next question. Again, you need to have that however thing to talk about. All right, I made a mistake. Here's what I learned. Here's what I did. Here's how I made the mistake not so bad. Okay, and here's what I'm doing now so that I never make that type of mistake again. So I'm happy to provide a bit of a workshoppy answer to this, if that's okay with you guys.
Yes, so this is my answer. So as an undergraduate quantity surveyor in Melbourne, I used to work on a school project in 2020. So in that project, one of the drawings was not accurately calibrated, which resulted in some incorrect measurements and the entire project value underestimated by some 3%. And I only noticed this mistake after receiving the builder's tender results. So the first action I took was analyzing the cost differential and ascertain the root cause of the mistake, which was pretty much on my end. And the next action from me was to imminently report the issue to my manager and ultimately my director about how we can communicate this to the client. So under their instruction, I then let the issue know to the client who's from a public space who has to apply for funding from the local government. So I admitted to them our mistake, but also assured them that the project is still on budget from our review cost plan as opposed to their tender results, so that there's no need to apply for additional funding. And we amended the cost plan for them to have a consistent record for future. And ever since that incident, I've been more sort of cautious and proactive whenever I administer and control the document in the software. And I even initiated setting up a spreadsheet in which I put my action item made to each drawing, be it calibrating and checking, so that whenever my colleague took over that measurements, they would know it's been checked and they can always revisit the checking. So I guess that do have evidently brace us against the similar mistake from reoccurring in the future.
Yeah, that's really awesome, Daisy. You know, and that's the perfect structure, which is to highlight a mistake, explain what it was, explain, you know, what happened was, you know, there's a 3% surcharge or additional cost, and then you've articulated the steps you took to try and fix this thing. And the beautiful thing that happened was, after you've explained, you then talk about, well, here's what I learned. Here are my findings so that this doesn't happen again. And that is precisely what you need to do with your answer. It's to really explain to them, look, this is what I learned. You could go a step further and go, since then, I've worked on 15 other costing plans, and I've always checked and I've implemented my checking process to make sure that the costings match up.
Thank you very much, Naren. And
Thanks,
thank you,
Daisy.
Naren, for demonstrating.
Thanks,
We'll
bye.
see you at the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Bye-bye. See you.